Hey you, and welcome to my channel. My name is Tina and my aim is to improve your drawings just like others have done for me when I just started out. In today's video I'm doing something a little different. I'm going to go over the different features that make up a human face, and in this video I'll be demonstrating how I draw a mouth. In future videos I'll be drawing a nose and eyes, maybe even hair, I don't know yet. You just have to subscribe to find out. After I've done all these studies, I'll upload a finished portrait. Let me know in the comments below if you're excited about this. A thing I should mention about this drawing is that I drew it only using the Pitt pastels from Faber Castell. In my video last week I did a review on them and I like to get an even better feel for a product by using it a lot, so that's why I just used these. I should mention that this isn't something I would repeat because the coverage for larger areas is not as great as when you would use soft pastel sticks or pan pastels. This makes it very time consuming. By now I finished this section on the left, but don't worry, the skin surrounding the mouth is roughly the same everywhere. I'll jump back in right here. I first started with a darker shade of brown, and since I use Pitt pastels for this, I have to go over this with a couple of layers. After my first layer I go over this with a dark pink. The way you put down your pastel doesn't matter because you're going to blend this afterwards, so you won't notice anything anymore. In the middle I used an ivory tone, followed by a pink tone, followed by an orange tone. It might seem a bit scary at first of the bold colors I'm using, but this helps shape the realistic look. So when you are just starting out, you might not feel so comfortable using these bold colors, but with practice this will come. Okay, now let me show you the right part. So here we've got a lighter tone of skin, so I'm starting with an ivory tone as my base layer. Again, I needed to use quite some layers to fill up my paper, so normally I'd use soft pastels for my underlayer. This could be from Jackson's, Unison's or Schminke, to name a few. After this I go over it with a dark pink followed by a brown. Just note that I'm not laying down as much brown as I did the other colors. I even went over it with a light shade to mute it back down a bit. I also went over the entire left side with the ivory toned pencil to make everything a tad lighter. Whether you are doing animals or human portraits, you always need to be looking if you should make adjustments to your values. And the more of your portrait gets finished, the easier it becomes to judge this. Next I switched to the bottom right side, and you can see this is basically a repeat of what we've done so far. The only exception is that I already put down some really dark colors where the lips meet in the corner. As you can see, even after a couple of layers, this still shows through. If you want to step up your drawing or painting game, I have a new treat for you. You can download my new ebook through the link in the description. In this ebook I go over a few simple ways to quickly improve your artwork. Now for the left side I do have to change my base layers a bit since it's a little darker there. So instead of the ivory I started with the dark brown and an even darker brown for the shade on top. And next to this I could use the ivory and then just repeat the steps of brown and pink. Let me show you the picture I'm working from to give you a better idea. In the meantime I'm just blending this out. You can even see me put a lot of pressure on the paper to get a smooth result with the Pitt pastels. Then I'm going to play a little bit more with the colors to get my values right. When you are trying to draw skin, you can achieve a realistic look by increasing the contrast. What I mean by this is the following. If I were to draw a cartoon, I could have line art that shows where the mouth starts and ends. With a piece like this, you obviously can't do that, so the only way you can show depth is by playing with your contrast. The difference between a dark and a light area, if done correctly, can show depth. For example, right below the nose, everybody has a dimple. So to show this, I'm darkening some of my darkest values quite a lot. Through the contrast with the light area in the middle, you achieve the result you want. Now before I move on to the lips, let me first zoom in to show you how this looks up close, after quite some layers and a lot of blending. Okay, now that I've gotten the skin out of the way, I'm starting with the lips, and the teeth will be the last part. For my base color here I start with a dark red for the lip itself, and for the bottom part I'm using a red a little bit darker to accentuate the shaded parts. This is mostly the bottom part and in the corner. Here I switch to a lighter red, but I do mute it down a little bit. Also I switched to a blending stump here because I found out this really helps with the blending. Silly for me, losing quite some time on the blending part for the skin. For the right part I switched my colors up a bit. I used the color picker tool to help me out for this. Let me show you a picture that includes my color swatches. If you like my video so far, I would love it if you would hit that like button. It's that little thumb upwards button, not that I'm being pushy or anything. I'm also going to point out a part where it's really important to get the light and the dark values spot on. Then with burgundy, I'm going to add some markings indicating those dents in the lip. You'll add these in a darker area of the lip on the bottom side, and with the same color I also darkened the corners. In the corners I'm putting down quite a lot, because this is where the two lips meet, and when you have your lips together they will cast a shadow on each other. You can just go and check this out in a mirror. Now the next part is to get some texture into the lip. For this I'm taking a dark pink and I'm just putting down lines. Make sure you are happy with your blending up to this point, because once you start adding these details you can't blend anymore. If you would do that, you would basically erase all of your details and have to start over again. The only thing you'll sometimes see me do is blend it really softly with my fingers, because my lines were a little bit too bold. For the right side I did the same thing, but obviously with a darker color. I can use the same color for the darker markings on the right side too. Note that with the lighter color I only put down horizontal lines, while here I'm switching it up between horizontal and vertical lines. Next I'm adding another layer of the pink markings. Just use a very light hand for this, and it kind of resembles a crisscross pattern. And when I'm happy with how this looks, I'm starting on the bottom lip. Now this process is a lot like the upper lip, so I'm going to go over this a little bit faster. Mostly because I talked a lot up till now and I like to keep my tutorials on the short side, so I thought it was time to keep my mouth shut if I want to reach that goal. In the lower lip I did put in some markings before I blended to give me some guidance. And you can see after I blended it, I put in some more texture and I could be a bit bolder. This is mostly because the size is a little bit bigger. Let me just show you the reference one more time for this next part. You can see some highlights here. So the next part is actually adding some white, something we didn't do for the upper lip. I'm just doing this next to the biggest markings, and I'm also not going overboard with this. The highlights in the lip are quite subtle. And then I can start darkening up some areas as I move over to the teeth. But before I do that, if you are still watching now, this must mean you really like this video. So I would appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button to show your support. This helps my channel grow and I really appreciate it a lot if you were to do so. For the teeth, believe it or not, I'm using a very dark grey, nearly black, to darken up those corners as well as the edge between two teeth. Then I'm working from left to right and I'm using a light grey as my underlayer here. This way I can go over this with a darker grey and have some variation in there. I am going to go over this with the lightest grey before I blend this. And then for the highlights I'm first using that lighter grey again. Moving over to the next tooth, I'm filling the highlights up with the lightest grey I have, and then I'm going to use a mix of greys again. For my final layer I'm using that light grey again to lighten everything up a bit. You might be surprised at how dark my values are, but when you look at this mouth from afar, it all makes sense. Also, if I switch it back to my color swatch, you can see it grey on white, I mean black on white. This also depends a lot on your reference piece, of course, and not every time you'll draw teeth will you have to use such dark values. I just need to get in this last tooth. As you can see, from left to right it goes from a more shaded area to a lighter area, so for my last tooth I used a much lighter underlayer and a lighter colors in general. Now let's have another look at the finished result, shall we? I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate your support, as this helps to grow my channel and reach other people just like yourself. Hope to see you again next Friday, and in the meantime, have a great week.